This man, every time he finishes drinking 5 liters of water, forces himself to do 300 push-ups. Even if his face turns red and he's gasping for breath, he grits his teeth and perseveres, refusing to go to the bathroom. The reason he tortures himself like this is just to wait for an opportunity to escape. Finally, today that opportunity has arrived. The prison's breakfast is soybean paste. He asks his friend to get him a full plate. But Joe doesn't rush to eat it all at once, because the key player hasn't appeared yet. Just then, the prison warden arrives for inspection. Seeing that the time is ripe, he starts coughing violently, sounding like he has 5 pounds of phlegm in his throat. I feel like something's not right here. Immediately afterward, Joe spits all the soy milk in his mouth right in front of the warden. The warden is disgusted by this unexpected scene and immediately orders someone to take him to the infirmary. The doctor's diagnosis is that Joe has drunk too much water and just needs a day of rest. With this, the first step of the escape plan is complete. The next step is the second step. He then says that he needs to go to the bathroom. The female doctor, fearing that he might have some unforeseen accident, takes out a urinal and tells him to just take care of it on the spot. Please don't make me use this. At this time, the inmate who's been cleaning outside speaks up, offering to take him to the bathroom. Seeing this, the female doctor has no choice but to agree. Little does she know that this is exactly what the two of them had planned beforehand. Once inside the bathroom, Joe retrieves a chisel that he had hidden on the roof. He's going to use it to open the gate to the tunnel here. He opens it effortlessly. The next thing to do is to restore the tunnel to its original state, and then swagger out. However, things are not over yet because they have not yet really left this prison. A few days ago, when the two of them were working in the woodworking shop, they secretly used wood to make 2 boxes while the guard wasn't paying attention. Immediately afterward, they fixed these 2 boxes under the truck that was used to transport supplies out. Next, they just need to lie inside. When the guard comes to check with a mirror, he doesn't detect any prisoners hiding under the truck at all. He doesn't hesitate to let the truck go. When the truck arrives at the shopping location, they take advantage of the driver's departure to quietly crawl out of the wooden box. Here, there are already accomplices waiting to meet them. At this time in the prison, the inmate sees that Joe has been in the bathroom for a long time and has not yet returned. Feeling that the time is right, he deliberately causes a conflict with a black friend to create chaos. They cause a ruckus to attract the guards to suppress them, thereby controlling them. By doing this, all the attention of the prison warden will be focused here. He will not pay any attention to Joe, who has escaped. The place where he will go next is the racetrack. However, they are not here to watch the race but to steal the safe there. Joe initially didn't want to agree because he had already retired from crime a long time ago, and he could be released from prison in just a few months. He has $90,000 in savings hidden in his yard, so there's no need to take any risks. But Clyde tells him that the money in his yard has already been dug up by his younger brother, and now even that younger brother can't be found. There's no other way. In order to have a good life after being released from prison, he has to take this job. To help Joe escape, Clyde deliberately drove into a supermarket and stole 2 packs of instant noodles, and was then sentenced to 90 days in prison and imprisoned in this prison. Up to now, the plan has been very successful. But after getting the money, they still have to find a way to get back into the prison, so time is very tight. To clarify the structure of the safe, the other 2 inmates used the name of an anonymous sender to send a birthday cake to the female employee. Then they deliberately broke her car so that she would have no way to drive home. She had to leave the birthday cake in the office. Next, the 2 of them disguised themselves as repairmen and sneaked under the safe, pouring all the cockroaches they had caught earlier into the pipe. Soon after, these cockroaches followed the scent and successfully found the birthday cake. There was no other way. The woman had to invite a pest control expert, and the 2 of them could take the opportunity to quietly blend in with them. Then they learned the structure of the safe and conveniently obtained the password to the main door. Then they used a public phone to inform Joe. Using this password, they could easily enter the basement. After doing all this, they went to the card swiping station and used a homemade bomb made from a can to blow it up. In this way, when the audience bets, they will no longer be able to use the card swiping machine, but can only use cash to bet. Although the firefighters arrived at the station in time, it was definitely impossible to repair it immediately. Therefore, before the station is repaired, more and more cash will be sent into the safe through the pipe. Soon after, the inside of the safe was filled with cash up to tens of millions of dollars. At this time, Joe and Clyde had also arrived at the racetrack, but he didn't rush in. Instead, he ran to the grocery store to buy beer. Do you want to add $10 to buy 2 more bottles? Of course I do. Clyde was confused. What's the use of beer? Immediately afterward, he bought 2 more packs of marshmallows. After buying the things, Clyde led him to the front of the garbage dump. Joe was a little suspicious and didn't know what to do here. What's below? Roll down, what the hell are you doing? Before he could react, he was thrown down. It turned out that this place could lead directly to the basement. At this time, the race above had also begun, and everyone's attention was focused on it. No one noticed that someone was eyeing the safe. Since they had already figured out the route, they quickly arrived at the bottom of the safe. Clyde's brother, Jimmy, had already been waiting there. Then he gave Joe a bottle of bleach and a plastic bag. The two brothers were both very confused. Could it be that they could open the safe door with just these things? In the suspicious eyes of the two people, he poured the marshmallows and bleach into the plastic bag. Finally, he twisted the bag tightly. Although he didn't understand anything, Clyde still handed him the tube. At this time, Jimmy finally couldn't help but step forward and ask, mixing these things together, can it explode the pipe of the safe? This was the first time he had heard that marshmallows could be used to make a bomb. No matter how Joe explained it, he still couldn't understand. So soon after, the two of them had a fight. For safety, we can't bring ordinary bombs in here. Now, in order to succeed, we need calcium chlorate. Bleach is pure calcium chlorate. Sugar cane plus calcium chlorate will produce two kinds of gas and one kind of solid. Now you only need to provide a little more heat and you can get energy. And energy means an explosion. Although the other two didn't understand very well, they could only do as Joe said. Immediately afterward, Joe put the plastic bag into the bottle. Then he put the bottle into the money transfer pipe. This place is full of heat, but the few of them waited for a long time and didn't hear any explosion. Immediately afterward, the bottle was sent back intact. It almost hit Clyde, but he managed to catch it in time. But he didn't dare to move at all, because this thing could explode at any time. Joe carefully took it, and seeing that he was about to open the bottle cap, the two Logan brothers quickly dodged to the side. Immediately afterward, he adjusted the tightness of the bag and put it back into the bottle. Then he put the bottle into the pipe. Soon after, under the action of heat, the bottle exploded violently, and the pipe was also successfully blown up. Not long after, a large amount of smoke entered the restaurant. The waiter thought that something was on fire somewhere and called the control center, but the control center didn't hear any fire alarm. However, to be safe, they still decided to send someone to check. At this time, on the other side, the robbers had begun to use a high-power vacuum cleaner to suck money out of the pipe. In an instant, a lot of money flowed out of the trash can. Seeing that the amount of money flowing out was getting less and less, Jimmy increased the suction. Unexpectedly, due to not holding it tight, the money in the pipe was spilled all over the floor. There was no other way. They had to change the direction of the vacuum cleaner and prepare to suck the money back. But just at this moment, an unexpected accident happened. Clyde's prosthetic hand was accidentally sucked in, causing the pipe to be blocked. But it was too late. Arguing more was useless. The urgent task is to quickly repair the vacuum cleaner. But this prosthetic hand has been used by Clyde for nearly 10 years. Seeing it is like seeing his own arm. No matter what, he wants to take it out. As the older brother, Jimmy has to persuade his younger brother to follow the plan. He promises that he will buy Clyde a pure gold arm in the future. Seeing this, Clyde can't insist anymore and has to obediently agree. Very quickly, a large amount of cash was put into the trash bag and taken out. Unexpectedly, they just turned the corner and met the security guard who came to check. The two of them didn't panic at all. They said that they were just going to take out the trash. Immediately afterward, the security guard asked them if they smelled smoke. No, because we have lost our sense of smell since we were young. Unexpectedly, the security guard believed such a ridiculous reason. He didn't hesitate to let them leave. The two of them escaped by the skin of their teeth. But just as they reached the gate, an unexpected accident happened. For some reason, this door suddenly malfunctioned and could not be opened at all. At this time, on the other side, Joe was still checking the remaining money, and the two security guards were walking towards that side. If they were discovered, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, this could not stump the clever robbers. One of the accomplices deliberately hid in the race car repair room to smoke. He not only successfully attracted their attention but also successfully led their investigation in his direction. This way, no one would think that the smoke was caused by the explosion earlier. Now the remaining money has been packed. But the two people in charge of transportation have not yet returned. Joe waited anxiously and ran to check. Now every minute of delay means more danger. The race above could end at any time. By then, the staff will definitely come to check the safe. When Joe ran to the place, he only saw the two of them standing there dumbfounded, not knowing what to do. But even if he came, the result would still be the same. At this time, on the other side, Jimmy saw that Joe had not returned for a long time. In the end, he could not sit still any longer and immediately ran towards the gate. But coincidentally, he just happened to meet the two security guards. "Do you smell any smoke?" "No smoke, I only smell the smoke of race cars." In this way, He successfully avoided the inspection and arrived at the place of his accomplices. "You will pull it out of the line, the chain is stuck." After fiddling for a long time, it turned out that the chain was stuck. Thus, the transport staff continued on their way, and Joe and Jimmy returned to the safe. Over here, Clyde was still looking for his arm, but now their time was very tight. Even Logan's younger sister, Melly, could not help but participate. After searching for a while, Jimmy finally found the prosthetic hand for his younger brother. After putting the money into the trash can, he wiped clean the chemical formula that Joe had written on the wall. Next, he reconnected the pipe of the safe and erased the fingerprints on it. He did every step very meticulously and carefully. Wherever they had touched, he carefully wiped it over and over again, to prevent the police from tracking them down later. However, the money taken out would not be taken away immediately, but would be marked bag by bag and buried with the trash. When the race ended, they would dig it up. The remaining question was how to let Joe quietly return to prison. However, they had already come up with a countermeasure. This required the help of friends in the prison. First, they used sesame oil to cover all the cameras, and then they used meal trays and tin foil to seal the windows. The main purpose was to prevent the warden from seeing the situation inside. When the game on TV was about to end, Joe's return plan officially began. Only one of the prisoners took the metal rod from the guard. Then he wrapped the rod with a paper towel and plugged it into the power outlet to ignite it. In this way, this fire triggered the fire alarm in the restaurant. Although the warden was very angry, in order to prevent the prisoners inside from having any unforeseen accidents, he still called the prison's fire brigade. At this time, Joe and Clyde, disguised as firefighters, were already waiting there. When the fire truck set off, they quietly took the opportunity to climb into the truck. They followed the fire truck back to the prison. When the others proceeded to put out the fire, they took the opportunity to sneak off the truck. Then they quietly returned to the infirmary. Just as the firefighters were rushing to the scene of the fire in a very tense mood, they found that this was just a prank by the prisoners. However, they still tried to suppress the anger in their hearts and symbolically sprayed the trash can with a fire extinguisher. When the female doctor came to the ward to check, Joe was already lying obediently on the bed. She could not have imagined that in just a few short hours, Joe had run out to complete a robbery. Although the people from the investigation bureau arrived at the scene in time, it was all too late. No clues were found at the scene, and tens of millions of dollars disappeared without a trace. However, they still had a witness, who was a racer who had a grudge against Clyde. He and his colleague happened to meet the two of them fleeing in the underground tunnel. As a result, he was beaten by them. Upon receiving this news, the investigator immediately called the prison warden. However, the warden knew very well that once the matter in the prison was exposed, he would most likely lose his job. Therefore, he hid the matter of the prisoner riot from the investigator. He said that Joe had always been in prison and could not have escaped. The investigator did not know who to believe, and the case was temporarily deadlocked. However, immediately afterward, an even stranger thing happened. After leaving, Jimmy drove the money truck to the gas station, and a few minutes later, he called the police, helping the police successfully recover $20 million. After doing all this, he quietly left. The racetrack owner, after recovering the money, asked the insurance company to compensate $100 million. Not long after, Clyde was released from prison. Just as he thought he could use the money to live a rich life, Melly told him bad news, that Jimmy was missing, and he even returned $20 million to the racetrack owner. On the other side, Joe's life in prison was not easy either. Because he had sprayed the warden all over his body last time, the warden always held a grudge in his heart. He not only humiliated Joe but also beat him up. In the end, he locked him in solitary confinement. However, Joe was not angry at all, but was very happy instead, because he would be released from prison soon. After being released from prison, he hurriedly went to find Clyde. Unexpectedly, Clyde told him that Jimmy was missing and even returned the money to the racetrack owner. Unexpectedly, after working so hard for a long time, he ended up doing it for nothing. However, Joe could only suppress the anger in his heart and return home. Just as he didn't know how to live his future life, there was a sudden knock on the door. But when he opened the door, there was no one there, only a shovel placed in the hallway. Joe thought it was someone's prank. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly thought of something. He immediately picked up the shovel and went to his yard. He didn't say anything and started digging. Unexpectedly, there were several bags of money hidden underneath, totaling up to $5 million. It turned out that the iron gate was deliberately damaged by Jimmy. The main purpose was to distract Joe and the other accomplices, creating an opportunity for Melly to sneak in. Then she took advantage of the 10 hours to once again take away $20 million from the safe. These $20 million were buried by him with the trash. After finding the opportunity, Jimmy dug it up again. Then he divided the money among everyone. Not long after, the friend who was in charge of causing trouble in the prison was also released. As soon as he was released from prison, he saw a luxury car waiting there. The car was full of a bag of cash. Even the woman in charge of the safe management also received a sum of mental compensation. In this way, this matter has passed for a year, and the investigator has not been able to find out the truth of this robbery. Not long after, the racetrack owner withdrew the lawsuit. In the end, it was the insurance